So this is the Epic. We'll go from the front to the rear, and I'll take you through what there is to see and know about the Epic. So at the very front, it's got a Polynesian style plumb bow, and it's got a stretchy strap that holds a front handle that you use to carry the boat. And it's got strapping. This is a mount for the sail that I'll erect soon and show you how that works. It's got a different style of hatch to other kayaks, and it works really well in that they've got these just oval hatches that can actually sit inside nicely, but they do end up providing a fair bit of stowage space in the front, and very easy to lock in, and with water rushing over the bow, it's no big deal. That they are quite waterproof. I've always travelled with dry bags in the hatches anyway, just in case anything happens. It's no big deal to have the bits and pieces in dry bags. Another stretch at the front here that you can use for storing gear. However, with the amount of space that's actually in the cargo areas, that I've never really tended to store much at the top here. Sometimes I used to, before I had an electric bilge, store a manual pump in there, and in longer trips I've actually stored the manual pump, bilge pump, under the straps at the front. This other straps is just for holding the sail in place when I've got the sail mounted, and there's a front pulley system and a tie down for the sail, but as I say, I'll show you that in a second. This is also part of the sail mechanism, as is this. Moving into the cockpit area, it's got a electric pump at the back there, and this seat ends up being quite comfortable, and it does allow you to, with these straps, change the position of it to give you more support in your lower back or less support in your lower back. The seat moves quite easily on this little tracking system that you pull up and slide it forward and back. It does have some padding underneath the cowling at the front there, and that's so when you lock your knees in to the boat, that it gives you that nice sort of padding and feeling. You'll see down there that there is a foot plate that you can also adjust the size or the length of the foot plate. You might also, depending on the light, also see a couple of paddles at the top, and that's part of the steering mechanism, and I will show you that soon. Moving on, this is for the rudder release. The Epic has a retractable rudder. You can use it without retracting the rudder all the way down. It's spring loaded, but normally you would let it slide all the way down, and then when you're wanting to lock it off and carry it, then you can retract it and lock it away with this string and mechanism here. Moving on to the day hatch. There's this carbon fibre looking day hatch, and in there is the battery. That's a bigger battery than what I normally use. I have the other smaller battery that actually just fits in that metal carriage there, with a bit of elastic strapping to hold it in place. But and then it is actuated by this little pump or button, here, and it has a plug here. So it's quite actually simple. The pump is glued to the floor of the kayak, or the cockpit area there. So in the event that you roll, or you've got a whole heap of water in the cockpit, that you just push down on the button and it jets the water out of this hole. And while it's not in use, just so that you don't have water flowing back down there and filling up the inside of your cockpit with just water that flows over. I just use this little bung here that keeps the majority of the water out. But yeah, that's the button to operate the electric pump. This is the day hatch area. It's a smaller little area that it's really designed that while you're sitting in the cockpit you can reach around, pivot around and get to food or water or sunscreen or whatever you're carrying in the day hatch, and that just locks off like that. Bit more elastic strapping at the back here. People do tend to have a spare paddle just in case your other paddle broke, and they tend to lay them across this back and let the blades fit underneath here, and then the shaft fit underneath here. This is the main hatch at the back, and it's a similar sort of clasping system to the front. It's a larger opening so that you can get larger bits and pieces in there, and then it's a fair sort of size of or volume of gear or storage space there. That just locks back in. Moving on the back, there is a plug in if ever the water was actually in the back part of the hole, you could evacuate it. And I think underneath here there's the mechanism for the rudder in case you ever had any issues with the rudder. Like the front, the back has a carrying handle as well that nicely retracts out of the way. What I'll do is while the kayak's this way up, I'll mount the camera and show you how I put the sail on. So the sail is pretty much made up of two parts. One is the masthead that just sits on the front here and locks in. The other one is the rest of the sail, and what that does is just slides over the actual shaft there, and then there's a couple of clasps. They're a little bit corroded, so you may want to change those, but structurally they're still fine, but the actual clasp mechanism themselves is a bit sticky, and they're a very inexpensive part at any marina. But what happens is that you clip the side stays on, and like that. And there's a slightly longer one that clips on down the front here, and there's a long piece of string, rope, that goes through the front and locks off on this side. I'll bring the camera over later and show you how that locks off. Then the sail also has, at the end of the boom, another piece of rope that goes through this front pulley system, and that goes through this clasping mechanism, and what I normally do is just tie that off. Tie that end off as well. Then, while you're not using it, it just gets strapped on. Scenario is, it just lays off to the side. You can actually sort of nicely paddle without the sail getting in the way. And then when you are going to pop the sail, unfurl that, pulling this pulley actually raises the sail up, and then you just lock it off into the side. As I said, I'll show you that closer. And then this pulley actually allows you to let more sail out or bring the sail in, depending on the tack that you're taking. Normally you're sort of moving forward. When you want to pull the sail down, you lift that up and that releases that, so that the wind usually catches that. And then you release this side and let the sail fall towards you, catch it, get your little strap again, and strap that in. It just sits on the deck and paddle away. So those clasps look like that's this one, and just pull the rope through, and it just is a bit of a friction, but it just holds it in place. When it tries to pull that way, those teeth bite on the rope and stop it from pulling, but you can actually pull it this way, and it releases it. So when you want to release, you just pull it and lift it up and out of the teeth. This one is different. It's got a spring-loaded pair of teeth, so that when the rope is there and there's the tension is on the rope this way, the teeth lock in, but you can just pull this way and release the rope. And that's the sail. What I will do next is I'll pack the sail back in its little carry case, and I'll turn the boat up and on the other side, and I'll show you the bottom of the boat and the rudder, or the operation of the rudder. Just before I put that away, I'll show you the corroded clasps here. And as I say, you can go to any mariner shop, and they'll sell you different styles of these clasps. As I say, they're still structurally sound, but as you can see, that there's corrosion in amongst them, so it'd be worthwhile just swapping them out. Okay, so this is the Epic upside down. There's the plumb nose again. The front of it I've never really smashed around, well, not at all. Bit of scratching on the paintwork there from just grounding into the beach heads. Superficial little rub mark there. Bit of a scratch through here, but it's not very deep. You can't even sort of get your nail in that. All good running surface. This is the rudder, and we release the rudder here. You can see the retractable blade of the rudder come out, and then when you pull on that rope, it actually slips all the way back in. And when it does slip back in, it actually pretty much locks into place. When it's extracted like that, it acts as a full rudder, but it does have a locking mechanism so that when it is closed, it doesn't really work as a rudder. And there is a reason for that, but I never became that professional to actually use it in that way. That's just a flag that when it hangs off the car, it can be seen. But that's the Epic X Sport, and there is a PFD with it as well, and a fiberglass and carbon fibre paddle. So the shape of the blade is for touring. It's a very stiff design. There's not a lot of flex in that at all. It is designed to split apart nicely like this, so that you can easily carry them. Then you slide them into one another and then lock it off with this. You can, depending on your height, have it at different lengths, so it ends up being longer. You can actually also, there's markings through here. You can have the it offset so that sort of when your paddle that's in the water, it's perpendicular to the boat, but the paddle that goes through the air is then actually feathered so that it slices through the air, while the other paddle is sort of asymmetric off center and pushing against the water. But you'll sort of work that out with some YouTube videos. The life preserver is relatively new. It's got a zip function section, or two sides of it. It also has a couple of different places that you can hang things off. There is an emergency whistle there, and the back there is a place for a water bladder which you can slide in the back there. And that there is about it. That's the battery I just took out so that when I turned it over, so that the other battery is a smaller, nicer battery. Gives you a couple of hours worth of pumping, and usually it's it evacuates all the water out of the cockpit in 5 or 7 minutes. So hours and hours of pumping isn't really needed. Anyway, if you've got any questions about it, by all means give us a call. Till then, bye.